Welcome back to the Law Show. Bob Kerrigan with you here every Sunday morning. Thank you so much for your text messages. It's very encouraging to us. I think the cynic might say, well, these lawyers are doing it to get business. Well, we need business to stay in business, and our business is serious injury and death claims. But we do this as a public service, hopefully providing information to people that's beneficial. If in the event you have the terrible outcome that requires you to consult a lawyer, we'd be pleased to talk to you. We do it without obligation at all. We don't push papers in front of people and have them sign the papers hiring a lawyer. We think it should be an informed decision. We don't think you ought to just hire whatever lawyer you saw the night before on TV saying whatever they're saying. That it's a personal relationship with your lawyer. All of our lawyers are board certified in civil litigation and this kind of work that we do that involves injury and death claims. So if we can, we'll be glad to talk to you without obligation. We tell people many times, especially in medical malpractice cases, that they don't have a viable case, and we do that so that they don't pursue something and pay a lawyer when we know, or at least in our opinion, there isn't any chance for them to make a recovery. So we try to be candid about it. Is not always news that people want to hear, but most people want to know the truth so that they don't pursue something that will disappoint them in the end. If we undertake the case, it's because we've made a reasoned initial assessment that the case is viable and that we will have a high probability of prevailing and winning. The vast majority of cases are settled, but the reason they settle is that the lawyers are prepared. They prepare the case, they present the case that they are going to file and pursue in court, and they show the insurance company that they're ready to go. And they have all of their ducks in a row, and they're prepared to go on unless the case can be reasonably settled. And so many cases do settle, if not in that initial evaluation period. And insurance companies and the defense lawyers, they need time to assess the case and to look into it and to see if there are any defenses, and that's the right and proper thing for them to do. But when they finish that, and both sides pretty much understand what the case is about, reasonable lawyers can usually work out a settlement. If, however, the case doesn't settle, and sometimes you get the defense or people on the other side just dig in, they say, we're not paying. We don't think we did anything wrong, we're not paying. Then that kind of case ultimately is tried by a jury. So when a jury hears all the facts, both sides, and they decide who's right and who's wrong in the case, many times they allocate fault, say maybe in 30% of the case, 30% of the cases, they'll allocate fault to one of the parties in the case that brought the claim. For example, if you have an intersection collision and both sides say they had the green light and the other side had the red light, and there's a dispute and the witnesses are confused and nobody's got to figure it out, but the person bringing the claim has a very, very bad injury. Let's say they've got $1 million claim. The jury might say, okay, here's the deal. With all this conflict going on here, we're going to have 50% fault for the person who's bringing this claim and 50% fault from the person who is on the other side here. And so the person who's injured then recovers half of their claim, or $500,000. So their claim is cut in half because of their participation in the negligence picture, in the big negligence picture. It's commonly referred to as comparative fault, comparing the fault of all people involved in the accident. All right, so just a quick caveat before I get to this marijuana story. I have developed an aversion to surveys. I'm tired of them. I'm tired of people calling during dinner. I'm old-fashioned. We have a landline phone, but they call and for one thing and another want to ask your opinion about things. Here's my view of surveys for whatever it's worth. And it's kind of a jaundiced view, I guess, but there is no such thing as an anonymous survey. It does not exist. If someone says, oh yeah, here's an example, well, I might debate them about it because I don't know how they did it and where the data went and who made the phone call. But my view is that these surveys are designed to get information from you, to find out about you, to find out what you think, how you feel. We know this from the presidential elections for sure, that surveys get things wrong all the time. Oh, the polling did such and such, and the polling results were so-and-so was going to get 70% of the voters, whatever it is. And the polling has just been historically in the last few elections, it's just been wrong, okay? Well, surveys are wrong too, because people aren't telling the truth when they're called by a stranger. Why would you tell a stranger your opinion about anything? It's not going to benefit you. It doesn't benefit anybody but the caller. So why is the person calling? Why are they conducting this survey? I don't know if it's happened to you. I am so tired of everybody who you buy something and they say, if you fill out this survey, and I feel bad about the people who are asking it because somebody is going to pay them or determine their compensation based upon a survey result. So I do feel bad about it because if it helps them and make sure that they receive more money. Sometimes I will agree to a survey on a phone if they'll say, if you'll stay on the phone afterwards and tell us what your result of how you feel about the person that answered the customer service call. I'll stay on and do that because I want to help the person that helped me. So I want to do it. And if I don't like the person, I don't think they've done a good job, I just don't give a negative response. I just don't participate in it. But where you have people that are really making an effort to help you and done a good job, that doesn't bother me. That's different. It's different than the kind of surveys where they call you and they want to know, well, what did you think about this? And did you vote for this? And would you agree to a constitutional amendment that does this or that or the other thing? It's just a no-win deal for the average person at their home. Plus, it interrupts your dinner. Okay, I mean, this is a dinner hour. Should be a time of peaceful exchange with you and your family. Shouldn't be the phone ringing off the hook with somebody calling. And these robocalls, we got a guy that runs a news weekly paper. He uses them all the time, constantly calls. I don't know how many times my phone has rung from one of these robocall surveys that they want to know, well, do you like the mayor? Okay, if you don't like the mayor, do you like the city council person? You don't like the city council person? Do you like the county commissioner? Are you mad at the county commissioner? Do you think you ought to have more paid leave if you're a city employer? Whatever it is, okay, it's of no benefit whatsoever to the person answering the survey. It's not, and you don't even know who's doing it. Who's really behind this? Who's really paying to get this information? I'm very negative about that. You say, well, you're very negative at this point. Yeah, I am negative about it because I don't think we ought to do it. I don't think we ought to participate. I think you refuse to do it. If you don't know who's calling, don't pick the phone up if you don't recognize the number. You rarely lose anything. However, I will tell you this. I got a call from a local radio station, somebody that I really like. Is a good guy, Andrew McCade, actually. So anyway, he calls and he's got a number that I didn't recognize. And so I almost didn't answer. But then I was, I'll take a chance on this. So I answered it. So my advice I just gave you, I don't follow myself sometimes. But generally, if I don't see the number, I don't call back. I mean, if I don't recognize the number, I don't call back. Now, let me talk about this marijuana thing because our congressman is really, no pun intended here, really high on weed, on smoking weed and passing out marijuana to people and opening up marijuana shops and buying marijuana stock or whatever all he's involved in. So here's a study, and this I'm going to see if I get my glasses on here, or I can just read you some highlights from it because that was fascinating. I just got this. It comes from Medpage Today. I've talked to you about that in the past, and this is by Libby Stewart. She's an MD. And it's a very recent article. It was just written. So let me explain something, a concept, causation and association. If something causes an injury, that means the injury wouldn't have occurred but for that thing that did it, okay? For years, they said smoking cigarettes couldn't be proved to cause lung cancer. It was just associated with lung cancer. What does that mean? It means that there was a body of data that said that all these people that smoked, and a higher percentage of them had lung cancer. Now, there's some epidemiology matters here, statistics that change this somewhat, but the general concept of causation and association is this. Something can cause it, or something can just be associated with it. And sometimes the association has nothing to do with causing something. It just happens to be occurring simultaneously with whatever is being observed. So, what are we talking about here? This article, correlation does not mean causation, just what I explained. But this article says, but that's why we do research. Many states, including Colorado, have made post-traumatic stress disorder an approved condition for medical marijuana. As a psychiatrist, having treated many people with PTSD, I know that marijuana is not the answer, just like alcohol is not the answer to treat PTSD. Sure, these addictive substances work in terms of numbing the person so they do not experience the symptoms. However, to keep the symptoms at bay, the person must use every day, sometimes all day long. This sets them up for developing cannabis or other substance abuse disorder and the possibility of psychotic symptoms or worsening psychotic symptoms from PTSD. A study of 3,233 veterans and cross-sectional multi-site study by the VA found that cannabis use disorder, called CUD, was significantly associated with both current suicidal ideation and lifetime suicide attempts compared to veterans with no lifetime history of CUD. The significance persisted even after adjusting for sex, PTSD, depression, alcohol use disorder, non-cannabis drug use disorder, history of childhood sexual abuse, and combat exposure. What does all that mean? It means when they separate all this out, take out all this other possible causes, so you have this high degree of association with suicide and with smoking or using medical marijuana. An observational study of 2,276 veterans treated with this treatment program around the country found that those who never used marijuana had significantly lower symptoms, severity 4 months after treatment than those who stopped using marijuana had even lower levels of PTSD symptoms. And those who started using marijuana had the highest levels of violent behavior and PTSD symptoms 4 months after treatment. This goes on to talk about the general prevalence in this country of the increased availability of medical marijuana, which of course just leads to the general availability of marijuana. There are multiple theories as to why there's such a strong correlation between marijuana use and violence, including suicide. One author found a moderate association between cannabis use and physical violence in youths and emerging adults with a potential dose-response association, meaning the more you use it, the worse it is. They offer an excellent overview of potential mechanisms explaining violent behavior, which could help explain suicidal behavior. All right, cannabis, is it possibly causative for suicide and violent behavior, or is it just associated? We need to study more before we get on the marijuana bandwagon. Bob Kerrigan with you for The Law Show, and thanks for watching.